Hey, Paul McGinnis here with some thoughts for your daily walk today. Coming from Luke chapter 8, and I'm on location here in my backyard. I wanted you to get a peek at a little simple little garden that my wife and I are working on. Mostly my wife, let's be honest. But I show you that because it's significant to what Jesus talks about in Luke chapter 8. He tells this story about a farmer who throws seed, and his seed, some of it falls on rocky ground and some of it falls on some ground that has some thorns, but some of it falls on good soil. And the soil is what makes all the difference, right? The seed is the same no matter where it lands, but sometimes it lands and it's not going to grow on the rocks. It's not going to grow very well once the thorns kind of choke it out. But if it can fall on good soil, that's where there will be a harvest. And it just makes me think about what is it that makes the soil right. Because obviously, as Jesus goes on to explain the story, he says the seed, that's God's word. That's God's spirit. That doesn't change. And wherever you go, God is drawing us to himself. Every person on the planet, in every square inch of this planet, God's presence is there. God's grace is active. God is drawing people to himself. The difference is how those people respond. But what's the condition of those hearts? What's the condition of the soil, if you will? And it's interesting to note that where God's word and the church seems to be thriving and active, it's probably because those are places, well, it's certainly because those are places where people are responding. People want God, and God seems to grow in places where he's wanted. And in other parts, perhaps North America, perhaps Europe, there seems to be a resistance to God. And so there isn't as much noticeable growth and excitement. But I want to drill down on Luke 8, verse 15, where Jesus explains what's going on behind the scenes. He said, the seed on the good soil, that stands for those with a noble heart. And listen to this. They hear the word, they retain it, and they persevere. And he really clearly lists three things that set apart that good soil. People who hear God's word, that they receive it or retain it, right? Somehow they respond to it, and then they persevere. And that one is key, I think. That one I think is so important. It's easy to hear God's word. We're surrounded by it often. We have access to it on our apps, at our churches, on media. We need to respond to it. We need to retain it and receive it. And then that last idea, we need to persevere. We need to continue. We need to keep moving forward, keep going in obedience, even when the shore is far away, even when the horizon is off in the distance, even when we've been doing the right thing for seemingly so long. We need to hear God's word, we need to receive it, and we need to persevere in that without giving up. That's what's going to mark a good and noble heart, and that's what's going to bring about a harvest. And so one more thought, and this coming from later on in the New Testament, do not grow weary in doing what is good, because you will receive a harvest if you do not give up. And so maybe that's what you need to hear today. Let your heart be good, fertile soil so that God's word can grow and produce a great crop.